6 weeks have passed since Rajesh and Atul Gupta were arrested in Dubai. It follows a request by the National Prosecuting Authority and the Justice Department for the controversial brothers to stand trial for state capture-linked crimes. For more on those arrests, we're joined by Open Secrets Director Hennie van Vuuren. Hennie, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. As it was 6 weeks ago, it very much still seems to be that South Africa relying heavily on the goodwill of the officials in the UAE to be able to successfully extradite the brothers to South Africa.
Yeah, good evening, Kathy. Well, I think one should note that today we've had some positive developments. In fact, we've heard in a media interview this morning on 702, Advocate Andrea Johnson, who's the head of the Investigative Directorate, finally took the nation into some confidence and explained where they are at the moment in this process. And I don't think it's all lost from what we're hearing. We're hearing some at least positive signals from the side of the Investigative Directorate that there has been movement, that the tardiness which we had thought that they had not submitted fingerprints, that it took them, well, at that point up to 7 weeks just to send basic information to the UAE. She's explained a way to say that it was an administrative bungle, that it was in fact the UAE authorities who hadn't explained what information they required, and so that there has in fact been movement behind the scenes. This is of course very welcoming and this is very promising, precisely because, as you say, the clock is ticking right now. There is a total of 60 days which the South African authorities have in order to prepare their arguments and submit those in terms of the extradition matter. We're told by Advocate Johnson that the NPA is working hard on these and they will meet the deadline. And I think this, Kathy, is the very first time that I'm aware of that we've actually heard the top bureaucrat in charge of this process come out and say, we've got this, we've fully got this in control, and has gone on record to say that they will do so. So I think that at least this window of transparency is a very important one that we need to recognize.
Of course, in order to be successful in the pursuit of the Guptas, evidence is going to be crucial. And she also spoke about the fact that they're still waiting on some of the authorities to provide them with data that they may need in relation to these arrests, especially some of the banks there.
Yes, certainly. I think it's encouraging to hear that they have written to the authorities in the UAE. They've asked for bank statements. We know that the United Arab Emirates was a central node in the criminal enterprise that the Guptas have run. There's a reason why people like Duduzane Zuma and the Guptas themselves have used this as a bolt hole. And that is precisely because the UAE has functioned and has profited from enabling these type of crimes for criminals like these across the world. And corporations in the UAE act very secretively and act as service providers to the very rich, to the very wealthy, and the very criminal. And sometimes those are all the same people, as we've seen in the matters around state capture in South Africa. So I think ensuring that we do get that information is crucial. We need to put pressure on the UAE to ensure that that information is released. And obviously, a letter from the ID isn't going to cut it alone. We need to make sure that there's political pressure, and that's got to come from President Cyril Ramaphosa, from Minister Mandaledi Pandor from International Relations and Cooperation, and from the Justice Minister himself.
Hennie, when we look at the amounts of money that are said to have left this country as part of the state capture project, it becomes very clear, and this is just one example of the need to work together, different countries, different agencies, really understanding the importance for South Africa to be able to hold those behind some of this looting accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's very clear that you need international collaboration, Kathy, on the one hand, that is crucial. You need to recognize that there are going to be international partners, and as we've argued previously, that might include countries like the UAE that might say they're going to assist in this process, but in fact have a lot to lose by full transparency. And so we need to be well aware that that kind of politics and politricks is often at play. But equally, we need to recognize that you're going to have to find ways to work together together in a country like South Africa. And Kathy, I think it brings us to one point which I feel Advocate Johnson has not sufficiently addressed, and that is the capacity she is building up internally to take on these matters. Today, she has indicated that there is a process of trying to onboard new counsel, and she's going about a particular procurement process. But the bottom line is this, Kathy, that the contracts for most of the senior investigators, from what we understand, and the counsel who were brought in from the Zondo Commission, so these were experts, if you like, had been working on the state capture matter for a number of years, they were simply moved out the door by Advocate Johnson, and they have not been given an opportunity to continue to collaborate and work with the NPA in tackling these important cases. We know that the NPA was going to send Advocate Anton Katz to represent it in Dubai in the extradition matter. Well, he's not a state capture expert. He is famous for most recently representing the interests of a Dutch war criminal in South Africa, but I don't think he has intimate knowledge of the crimes of state capture, very well other crimes. So it begs the question, are you assembling the right people? Are you making sure that we have the strongest team, South Africa, if you like, who can go out there and tackle the issues of state capture? And right now, I don't think we are fully convinced by the arguments that have been put forward by Advocate Johnson. And I think she needs to, again, bring us into confidence to explain what that team is going to look like, how she's ensuring continuity, and how that team is going to help us go after this criminal network. She said today it's going to take years. We need to get information from international authorities, whether it's the US or elsewhere, who have been gathering information, and we need to make sure that we are using the best team possible to go after these corrupt networks, the corporations, the banks that are involved. They will have deep pockets and very expensive lawyers who will all come to fight against the system of justice to ensure that their clients' interests are taken care of.
A part of why it's so important, Hennie, to have the right kind of capacities that, as has been widely reported, the Gupta brothers are sparing no expense when it comes to putting together their own legal representation in these matters.
Yeah, indeed, as we know that Advocate Mike Helens and his colleagues who work for the Guptas, or on their, who act for them, rather, shall I say, have been doing so for many years. It is no doubt, these are no doubt clients that take good care of the professionals and have done so for many years, who represent their interests. They are, I think, we know the evidence is there because has come out very clearly in the evidence in the Zondo Commission that they are able to pay the kind of fees that they do to people who represent them because they have stolen money from the South African people. So I think, again, as you say, they have very deep pockets on the one hand. They've got very strong allies. I think we should recognize, Kathy, and those allies are sitting in many of the big corporations. When we think about the New Lane or Nulani Investments matter, there are corporations like Deloitte and others who are linked to that, and a range of other companies, banks, big consulting companies from Bain to KPMG to a range of other corporations that HSBC have made money out of this enterprise. And I'm not suggesting that these are all still working in cahoots, but there is an amalgamation of interests here that the South African authorities should not get not only to the bottom of state capture, but they shouldn't try and bring the house of cards down by starting to hold these elites to account. And so I think we really have to be alive to the fact that we're up against the Goliath here, and if we are going to be serious about it, we need to throw everything possible and ensure that we again have the best people on this job and the people who can show the kind of commitment to see these matters through. It will take years, no doubt, Kathy, but I think we have to have the fortitude of ensuring that we hold these people and corporations to account and claw back the money that they owe to the South African people.
Open Secrets Director Hennie van Vuuren, we'll leave it there for tonight. Thanks for your time.